Durational expectancy. To understand why acceleration in the pace of life may prove disruptive and uncomfortable, it is important to grasp the idea of durational expectancies. Man's perception of time is closely linked with his internal rhythms, but his responses to time are culturally conditioned. Part of this conditioning consists of building up within the child a series of expectations about the duration of events, processes, or relationships. Indeed, one of the most important forms of knowledge that we impart to a child is a knowledge of how long things last. This knowledge is taught in subtle, informal, and often unconscious ways, yet without a rich set of socially appropriate durational expectancies, no individual could function successfully. From infancy on, the child learns, for example, that when daddy leaves for work in the morning, it means that he will not return for many hours. If he does, something is wrong. The schedule is askew. The child senses this. Even the family dog, having also learned a set of durational expectancies, is aware of the break in routine. The child soon learns that mealtime is neither a 1 minute nor a 5 hour affair, but that it ordinarily lasts from 15 minutes to an hour. They learn that going to a movie lasts 2 to 4 hours, but that a visit with the paediatrician seldom lasts more than one. They learn that the school day ordinarily lasts 6 hours. They learn that a relationship with a teacher ordinarily extends over a school year, but that his relationship with their grandparents is supposed to be of a much longer duration. Indeed, some relationships are supposed to last a lifetime. In adult behaviour, virtually all we do, from mailing an envelope to making love, is premised upon certain spoken or unspoken assumptions about duration. It is these durational expectancies, different in each society but learned early and deeply ingrained, that are shaken up when the pace of life is altered. This explains a crucial difference between those who suffer acutely from the accelerated pace of life and those who seem rather to thrive on it. Unless an individual has adjusted his durational expectancies to take account of continuing acceleration, they're likely to suppose that two situations similar in other respects will also be similar in duration, yet the accelerative thrust implies that at least certain kinds of situations will be compressed in time. The individual who has internalized the principle of acceleration, who understands in their bones as well as their brain that things are moving faster in the world around them, makes an automatic, unconscious compensation for the compression of time. Anticipating that situations will endure less long, they are less frequently caught off guard and jolted than the person whose durational expectancies are frozen, the person who does not routinely anticipate a frequent shortening in the duration of situations. In short, the pace of life must be regarded as something more than a colloquial phrase, a source of jokes, sighs, complaints, or ethnic put-downs. It is a crucially important psychological variable that has all been ignored. During past eras, when change in the outer society was slow, people could and did remain unaware of this variable. Throughout one's entire lifetime, the pace might vary little. The accelerative thrust, however, alters this drastically, for it is precisely through a step up in the pace of life that the increased speed of broad scientific, technological, and social change makes itself felt in the life of the individual. A great deal of human behaviour is motivated by attraction or antagonism towards the pace of life enforced on the individual by the society or group within which they are embedded. Failure to grasp this principle lies behind the dangerous incapacity of education and psychology to prepare people for fruitful roles in a super-industrial society. The concept of transience. Much of our theorising about social and psychological change presents a valid picture of man in relatively static societies, but a distorted and incomplete picture of the truly contemporary person. It misses a critical difference between the people of the past or present and the people of the future. This difference is summed up in the word transience. The concept of transience provides a long missing link between sociological theories of change and the psychology of individual human beings. Integrating both, it permits us to analyse the problem of high-speed change in a new way. And as we shall see, it gives us a method, crude but powerful, to measure inferentially the rate of situation flow. Transience is the new temporariness in everyday life. It results in a mood, a feeling of impermanence. Philosophers and theologians, of course, have always been aware that man is ephemeral. In this grand sense, transience has always been a part of life, but today the feeling of impermanence is more acute and intimate. Thus, Edward Albee's character, Jerry, in The Zoo Story, characterises himself as a permanent transient, and critic Harold Clurman, commenting on Albee, writes, "None of us occupy abodes of safety, true homes. We are all the same, people in all the rooming houses everywhere, desperately and savagely trying to effect soul-satisfying connections with our neighbours. We are in fact all citizens of the age of transience." It is, however, not only our relationship with people that seems increasingly fragile or impermanent. If we divide up humanity's experience of the world outside themselves, we can identify certain classes of relationships. Thus, in addition to their links with other people, we may speak of the individual's relationships with places, with things. We can single out for examination his relationship with places. We can analyse his ties to the institutional or organisational environment around them. We can even study a person's relationship to certain ideas or to the information flow in society. These 5 relationships plus time from the fabric of social experience. This is why, as suggested earlier, things, places, people, organisations and ideas are the basic components of all situations. It is the individual's distinctive relationship to each of these components that structures the situation. And it is precisely these relationships that, as acceleration occurs in society, become foreshortened, telescoped in time. Relationships that once endured for long spans of time now have shorter life expectancies. It is this abbreviation, this compression, that gives rise to the almost tangible feeling that we live rootless and uncertain among shifting dunes. Transience, indeed, can be defined quite specifically in terms of the rate at which our relationships turn over. While it may be difficult to prove that situation as such takes less time to pass through our experiences than before, it is possible to break them down into their components and to measure the rate at which these components move into and out of our lives, to measure, in other words, the duration of relationships. It will help us understand the concept of transience if we think in terms of the idea of turnover. In a grocery store, for example, milk turns over more rapidly than, say, canned asparagus. It is sold and replaced more rapidly. The throughput is faster. The alert businessman knows the turnover rate for each of the items they sell and the general rate for the entire store. He knows, in fact, that his turnover rate is a key indicator of the health of the enterprise. We can, by analogy, think of transience as the rate of turnover of the different kinds of relationships in an individual's life. Moreover, each of us can be characterised in terms of this rate. For some, life is marked by a much slower rate of turnover than for others. The people of the past and present lead lives of relatively low transience. Their relationships tend to be long-lasting. But the people of the future live in a condition of high transience, a condition in which the duration of relationships is cut short, the throughput of relationships extremely rapid. In their lives, things, places, people, ideas and organisational structures all get used up more quickly. This affects immensely the way they experience reality, their sense of commitment, and their ability or inability to cope. It is this fast throughput, combined with increasing newness and complexity in the environment, that strains the capacity to adapt and creates the danger of future shock. If we can show that our relationships with the outer world are in fact growing more and more transient, we have powerful evidence for the assumption that the flow of situations is speeding up, and we have an incisive new way of looking at ourselves and others. Let us therefore explore life in a high transience society.